you to know that your section leaders were really conscientious. And they tweaked it for your section according to how they taught you. So they're really looking out for you. So you should be grateful that they paid that much attention considering how little we pay them. Anyways, sorry. Tonight we're going to shift our focus to the street, but actually it'll be a pretty good midterm review because Mike Sorkin and I are going to take a stab at it. Actually, we're going to be tested at trying to find some links with Bauman, Napier, Parai, Senate et al. We're going to look for signs of cosmopolitanism, of modernity, of tactics and strategies on a few New York City blocks. And we're going to do it pretty loosely, and we're going to do it to show you how you can play with theory. These aren't straitjackets. You have to know what the author means before you start screwing around with his terms, but you can elaborate and play with them. So, but before we start playing, just a few words of formal introduction. I first met Michael through the pages of the Village Voice, like many, many people. I met Michael, the architect, and the urbanist later.
Not the personal stuff.
No. I met the architect later. We did a lot of different projects together, but even though I met the practitioner second, I'm sure practice has always come first, or at least equal to his work in theory, to which he's founded his own studio. It's his economic studio, Michael Sorkin Studio, which combines theory and practice and focuses on the realm of the urban. In fact, by my rough count, his CV lists about well over 30 projects specifically dedicated to cities and master planning. As you can also see here, he is a distinguished professor of architecture and director of the Graduate Urban Design Program at CUNY. So distinguished, he's enjoying a sabbatical this semester, and so generous, he's taking a night to come to talk us. Before teaching at CUNY, he was professor of urbanism and director of the Institute of Urbanism at the Academy of Fine Arts in Vienna. Leave it to the Viennese to come up with a very long title. Not to mention the host of professorships he's held at the likes of Columbia, Penn, Cornell, Harvard, Michigan, Cooper, and others. He is an indefatigable, I can't even say the word right. You write a lot, and you make me feel like a slacker. And you're also a brilliant polemicist. He contributes to numerous publications, including Architectural Record of Metropolis, where he serves as a contributing editor. Of special note is his most recent manifesto, Utopia Now, which will find its way into the conversation tonight. It was published by the Harvard Design Review last fall. He's written a bunch of books, most notably the one I have excerpts on, E-Reserves, 20 Minutes in Manhattan. Do read the excerpts, and better yet, buy the book. It'll be really helpful in thinking about your papers. In fact, you'll get ideas for some propositions from them, of the urban theory. Besides 20 Minutes, Michael's also written variations on theme parks, Exquisite Corpse, Local Code and Wiggle, all the testimony to the fact that writing and design make great partnerships, no matter how heinous writing may seem to you at this moment. Now, obviously, we're not going to write tonight, but we are going to talk out loud and think out loud and hope that it'll help with your writing. We're going to talk about the politics of everyday space by looking at several city blocks as they are, and then we're going to look at the politics of intervening in those spaces. And I'm going to show you some examples of my time in Milan and some examples from students who were in this class before here at Parsons. So let's get this show on the road. So, this is one of my favorite sentences in your book. At the bottom of my stairs, I confront my first choice of the day, right or left. The word confront is pretty powerful. Clearly your choices have already been made for you on some level by the street itself. And I like confront too because it reminds me of confronting the blank pages of the writer. Yet you might make it simple with possibilities. I'm wondering if you want to give us any thoughts about how you approach streets generally, how you see them, or should we just jump into the streets? It's up to you. How about a little practice?
As you like, William. It's a literal complication. When you come down to the bottom of my stoop, there's a lateral street, buildings across the way. On the
some days it seems to me, especially of late, particularly important that I have the little commerce with the Pakistani news dealer, who can only be reached by turning right. But you know, it's a decision tree, a series of branching possibilities. And one of the skills of being a walker in the city, I think, is the ability to think in advance about possibilities that will open up after a series of decisions. I think it shares something with the qualities of being a good chess player. The idea that you can anticipate not only your own moves, but somehow anticipate counter moves as the city resists. So one of the counter moves that I might think about has to do with the climate. And I would vary my route depending on the season, certainly. One of the things that some of Susan's pictures will reveal, and your experience as well, is that this ain't Paris. And that in terms of providing an umbrella of shade via street trees, it's very sporadic. So I know very well on certain days, depending on the solar angle, which streets to take that will leave me in the shade. On other days, when it's more important to be in the sun, there's a certain amount of block switching, depending on the time of day, which allows you to take your walk in the sun. There are considerations of distance. There are considerations of special events that take place. Some of you may be interested in construction, as I am, the architects about in particular. And I feel obliged, to supervise a whole series of construction sites between my apartment and my office on a fairly regular basis. Of course, of late, my studio is just by the Houston Street subway station on number 1. So there is the necessity for visiting crime scenes. There were 2 people stabbed to death in the subway station a few days ago. And today, I noticed that there was a serious traffic accident. 2 cabs totally mangled on that corner. Catty-cornered from the corner where the taxi accident happened, which was in the book, is the gigantic federal building, which the passport agency is, and in which it is now revealed that a branch of the gulag for terrorists and other illegals is located. This is one of the most paranoid environments in the city. I pleasure myself by counting the surveillance cameras, flipping the bird to one after another to see whether I can evoke any kind of response. But there is at this intersection some kind of paranoid, dangerous nexus, which reproduces itself in all sorts of ways. So interesting to visit the crime scene, curious as to whether there are bloodstains on the platform of the subway, but also sometimes I get this great anxiety that since it is the federal building, helicopters land on the top, there are shadowy agencies in there, all the kind of anti-tank bollards and planters that have been placed around. So it is a building that is self-identified as a target. And on evenings when I'm walking home in a particularly paranoid frame of mind, every car turns into a apartment. So this often structures that. I have been known on particularly anxious evenings to walk in the opposite direction. So I can avoid entirely skirting this block, which is so laden with the atmosphere of the dangers. I don't know whether you have the same reaction to the streets. You probably do. My students are doing a project in Bogota at the moment. And when I went down there to scout around the sites, I was amazed by the kind of elaborate precautions that were taken to walk by them. Say to me, perfectly safe to walk on this block, 1 block over it. Don't risk it. I was in Beirut this year, which is easily the most psychotic environment I've ever encountered, which is a city that is entirely about territoriality. It is so fragmented, it is so full of barriers that it's simply unbelievable. Unfortunately, or fortunately, most of these barriers were invisible to me. So I relied on my informants to tell me that we were, crossing from the Hezbollah neighborhood to the Palestinian neighborhood to the Druze neighborhood to the Jubilat neighborhood to the
absolutely true in New York. There were blocks you couldn't go to, shouldn't go to. I remember going for an interview at the Bronx Museum thinking, not everyone who goes to the Bronx dies. That's how I steeled myself for that interview. People come in and out every day. I mean, that's how absurd it was. I was told things like never get out of an elevator alone. And I thought that still crosses my mind sometimes. So now there's a different kind of paranoia. It's much more the surveillance idea. And I think that already Michael's pointed out things that you may not have thought of when you're examining your streets. Sun, shade, shadows, surveillance cameras, bowlers, plantings, those Jersey barriers they put in front of post offices so tanks can't go through. So on that note, let's go to celebrity murder. How many of you, this is a lot, my first shot of every street is going to stick because I don't have a great camera. I don't have a wide angle lens. What I'm going to do next is walk you down the street. But clearly this is what it says it is. Can you recognize the blue building? Does anybody know it? All right, we'll get to it later then. All right, let's just walk down the street. This is Broome Street. We're going to go, this is the lay of the land. This is taking you down. Then we're going to go back. So that's the whole length of the street. It starts out with something called the Berkeley Plan House. Here, and then so, celebrity murder. Is there anyone who knows why this place is famous? I didn't think so. But you know what? I bet you if your aunt from Idaho comes here with a guidebook, it'll be in the guidebook. Don't you think?
I don't know, but
We don't know. We should tell you the story and not keep you in suspense.
A famous celebrity monster called Joey Gallo was gunned down in this place.
Actually, not in this place. They moved it.
I
actually,
It
yeah,
used to be a Mulberry.
it used to be a Mulberry, and it was owned by Maddie the Horse Ionello, who my husband had the distinction of repairing his kitchen once under great fear. Maddie the Horse Ionello was the capo of the Genovese family. And there was a blood feud going on, and Crazy Joe Gallo got shot here, which made it famous when it was on Mulberry Street. Crazy Joe Gallo maybe is known to you because there was a movie that came out called The Mad Ones this fall. In fact, J. Crew was using it as a window display. So Crazy Joe could quote Kafka if he wanted to. He'd been in jail, he read a lot of fancy books, but
And he had celebrity friends.
he was friends with Jerry Seinfeld the night he got shot. He was out there.
Jerry Seinfeld, and
yeah.
that's his name, who used to be in Law and Order.
Yeah. Jerry
Orbach.
Jerry Orbach. Yep. He was, so this guy was a celebrity. He was a mobster, and he hung out with famous people. And he got shot in this restaurant. So what happens? The restaurant closes in 1996. It reopens here around the corner in 2000. Not owned by Matty the horse, who's still in jail, but by his son Bobby, who prefers to be called Robert Ionello. But you don't know this, right? This isn't something that's part of your history. I had to Google some of this. So fair game. If you have a sense that there's some interesting history, it doesn't hurt to do some research. But even if you didn't know anything, what do we got? We got the flag, right? Yeah, I'm asking you.
Yeah, we got the flag. And then so we've got the Chinese one.
Yes.
In the previous, the first slide, the establishing shot, I mean, what I noticed more prominently is this territorial map being thought out in the terrain of real estate between the remnants of the Italian community and the much larger, richer, and present Chinese community. And these are a series of boundaries that have been fluctuated for many years. I wrote down a couple of words that I should bring up, and interesting that you faked me out by moving this from Mulberry Street. Because one of the words that I think is very important in New York City, City of Lifestyles, is the idea of the authentic, which is a word we have much used. Sharon Zukin unpacks this very nicely in her new book, which is called
Naked City.
Naked City. Yeah.
It's on here.
Highly recommended discussion of the nature of authenticity. So what's interesting about this is that for us, it's the kind of grafting of this murderous authentic that somehow gives this place whatever resonance that was always bad. But somehow the experience was animated and mobile, made more stimulating by the fact that somebody had been known childhood.
Yeah.
I mean, I assume that this resonance is going to carry on the southbound platform of the Houston Street subway station for a while as well, as long as it remains in memory. This is a very scary incident. Some of the murders.
Yeah.
It is, and then there's we'll get to the Vesuvio Bay,
Yes, we will.
which is a very nice kind of transmutation of authenticity. This is one of the operations of the gentrifier, is the way in which the authority of some bygone authentic is grafted to something that has nothing to do with it, but somehow establishes its value, its worth, its credibility, its importance, its social prominence. So I wonder whether it is in any way commemorated in this restaurant that its reputation is so linked
It's
to this
commemorated in tour guide books. It still is written, so it's sort of like Arjuna Cartwright writes about ethnoscapes. Clearly this is no longer an ethnoscape. The idea of the transplanted Italian keeping a bit of home alive while he becomes or she becomes, blurred into our mess is not operating here, but it operates as sort of a celebrity ethnoscape, because anybody, certainly of my generation, knows the story, and we always make a joke about it. There's always it makes, there's some weird myth about the mafia, the exceptionalism of criminality.
Order the red sauce.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that, the idea of a touristic ethnoscape, that legend is kept alive in lore, is many. I mean, I'm sure they're not unhappy that people know the story. I can't imagine. I'm sure it drives business to this day, but if you were reading about that information, you'd see this sort of crest-like vogue that maybe they actually, Umberto might suggest Italian, it might suggest Spanish, I don't know. There's a lovely calligraphy of me on there. But there's this idea, I can't help but focus on that flag. The Italians love their flags. If you go to a political demonstration in Italy, they all match, their jerseys all match, they've got great symbols. It's a little bit of heraldry, a little bit of the old world.
Yeah. It used to be on Mulberry Street that one of the great pornographic icons was a poster of Mussolini in a souvenir shop. Caddy club.
Yeah.
So this raffish soupçon of criminality, whether political or mob, somehow was an attractive element. But I think something else very important to think about in cities, and part of the appeal of this place and part of what we're discussing is how cities reveal their secrets. How cities are encoded, how things are inscribed in the urban memory, and then how you retrieve them. Some of these memories are very close to the surface and can be negotiated. They're fungible. We can profit from the fact that the secret is only scarcely concealed. And I think that's probably true in this place. Because there's really very little reason to go there other than the fact that at the previous, it's the Disney effect, right? It becomes transportable. And the question is whether the aura is transportable as well. So that's an interesting question. I mean, who eats in Little Italy? Restaurants are good. Italian restaurants are everywhere. We're all have much more sophisticated palates than we did in those days.
Yeah, it's funny, the old restaurant, my husband used to point out the bullet hole in the glass. They clearly didn't decide to keep that. And I don't know, anyway, let's move on, because the next place I want to talk about actually isn't Chinese. This is sort of fascinating. I don't know if you can read this here, because the slides, you can probably see mass schedule, so we know it's an operating church. The sign above it says Philippine Pastoral Center. It's an official Roman Catholic designation that this is a Philippine congregation. And if you look at the flag wrapped on its pole, I suspect that it's probably a Philippine meander, thank you, the meander, yeah. So, what do you think about this church? What is it, does it inspire any thoughts? Does it seem like an oddity? Does it?
Well, it doesn't seem like an oddity because it seems very much of the. This is a neighborhood in which the background texture has not changed very much. There have been a whole series of recodings, but they seem superficial rather than architectural. So this still seems very much a part of the relic texture of what was the town neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a vaguely Romanesque looking.
Vaguely Romanesque in style, decidedly Catholic, but I mean, this is part of the genius of New York is the migration of territoriality. Why there is a Philippine church in that location, not sure. But even Philippines in the room. Do we have a Philippine neighborhood in New York City?
My husband's Filipino, but I don't think he goes there. He's not Catholic particularly, but I don't know. I think it's, I think the Philippine population is very ardently Catholic because they were Spanish. What I see here, they've all been subjected to Zygmunt Bauman's three cultural dynamics. So the first one we grappled with the idea that before you get to the particulars, you got to understand the high, low, the separate but equal, and sort of mixed up. You've got the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church throwing in the differential dynamic that Philippine Catholics deserve, their own community, which sounds kind of sinister, but could be considered benign. So that might be something to play with, and that's not information that's information you got from the words here, and maybe from the flag. But the idea of transforming the Roman Catholic Church in its ecumenical days to something more diverse is kind of fascinating as an ex-Catholic.
Well, it didn't proselytize us more or less from the get-go, no?
Yeah, but I think this dates back to John the 23rd.
Hand in hand with the colonizers, isn't that what they came over here to do, the Spanish?
Yes, it's true. Actually, I meant to make an Easter joke about Joey Gallo being resurrected, and I'm there, but I missed it. No, I don't think there's a whole lot you can say about it, except to notice that it seems to be, in a funny way, in keeping, as you say, with the neighborhood because of its particularity. I mean, what you write about a lot is this sort of homogenization.
Well, when I took my tiny notes in anticipation of this evening, I wrote down two words which I thought somehow constituted a useful divide. One of them is behavior, and the other one is representation. So, I mean, many of these slides are very architecty in the sense that they're relatively depopulated, and it's not really possible to tell what the people are doing when they're passing by. So in this instance, there might be another moment for making the photographic record when the congregation is spilling out. When the cassock-clad Father Don is standing there greeting the congregants as they leave. So it is possible that these people have interesting behavioral patterns with which they occupy the space. To do with an acoustic pattern, singing, way of dealing with the liturgy, with John the 23rd, maybe it's Tagalog, maybe it's in the vernacular. Something potentially echoes through this building and spills out into the sidewalk at a certain period that I think could be more revealing than the architectural photograph. And this idea that the city is producing cycles and epicycles of all sorts, and that the interaction or the accidental encounter between one cycle and another is something that is part of the genius of city life. One of the arguments that I'm making strongly in this book is that cities are juxtapositions machines. What the city does is produce accidents. And I would argue by extension that accidents are crucial to a democratic polity. Because without the constant opening up of possibilities, you live in a culture without choices. So to the degree that Parambar, first it's on Mulberry Street, and then it's on Broome Street, and then it's in Disney World, is a kind of collapse of choice. Both in terms of also in terms of the way in which the reading can be more powerful. You know, Disneyland insists that things be read simply one way. And to the degree that the city is sloughing off, outgrowing the multiplicity of its readings, it's getting to be a dull and sinister place.
You hit on a frailty as something to Mrs. Simon, and that is we have, for whatever reason, the reading that the students are doing is more or less the evidence that's left behind by whoever made it. And my argument is that these guys go out there, are going to make things, and they're not always going to be sort of whispering in your ear, like, this is what I meant. So there is a distinct limitation. I think Michael's right to talk about going back again and judging the experience, but we always worry about the amateur anthropologist who decides what Filipinos are, in that sense. I mean, as long as no value judgments are made, but certainly sound and smells, as we talked about before, if they're consistently there, give you some information.
Well, but one of the things that the ethnographer or the anthropologist does is read closely. And certainly close readings of the way people engage the street, I think is fundamental to understanding how the city works. And how the city works differently for different people. One of the things that's happened in the last 30 years since it's been more vigorous and theorized, is that this idea of public space and its use has been broken down as we appreciate that there's not a homogeneous public, that there are many publics, and that looking at this space, if you approach it as a religious elderly